Aloha! Welcome to our interview this evening with Tina Holt. She is a candidate for House District 2. Conducting our interview tonight is Gabe Katz and Antu Harvey. Before we get started, I'd like to offer a little information on HULI PAC. We are a group of grassroots community advocates volunteering our time to HULI PAC. Many of us have witnessed during oral testimonies the problem of being the minority voice, observing seated representatives voting against the āina or the majority of testifiers. The majority rule currently allows the continuation of colonial structures, corporate rule, and methods over Ike Hawaii for āina and its people to thrive. We must collectively understand the individual power we carry as Hawai'i Island residents by getting involved. Who's going to ask our first question tonight?
That will be me again, Jeff.
All
Tina,
right.
thank you for joining us. We're going to start with some just get to know you questions, and then we have a lot more particulars to get to. But I first want to start by asking, what inspired you to run for office this election cycle? And can you describe your core values and how those values apply to Hawaii Island's future?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. I align with everything that you said, Jeff, and I've been in advocacy work and community engagement and political shenanigans, if you will, for my whole adult life, actually. I got involved in Obama's first race, and that kind of like activated me into doing more than just complaining, of which I did a lot of as a teenager about Bush and all of that nonsense. I worked and volunteered on campaigns all across the country, and I found myself here in Hawaii when the pandemic ended my circus career. I was a full-time traveling circus performer for about 7 years and was here when, obviously lockdown started and we had to hang up our clown noses. And that is actually when I learned about what is actually going on in Hawaii and the status of the nation of Hawaii as an illegally occupied sovereign nation. And that led me to ask a lot of questions of myself of what it means to be here and take up space here as a settler and what I can do to spend the rest of my life showing my gratitude for the community of Hilo for taking me and my family in, especially during such a traumatic time. Um, and I was super fortunate to get to work on some amazing local campaigns here. I got to work on Laura Casio's Senate campaigns, both of her Senate campaigns. And as part of that, we did tons of door knocking and, tons of thousands of steps and hundreds, if not 1,000 conversations along the way. And every single one, I just fall more and more in love with this place and the people here. And we hear the same issues over and over again that people are struggling to feed their families and keep roofs over their heads and keep their kids close to home. And it just shouldn't be that way. And I generally follow a personal principle that if I complain about something more than 3 times, I got to do something about it. Because for me, action is the ultimate antidote for despair and hopelessness. So I just kept going. I volunteer for as many organizations as I can. I write testimony, I show up, I make educational content, and eventually I kind of just got sick to death of waiting for the status quo, pay to play old boys club to wake up one day and revolutionize itself. And when I looked at the race that and the candidates that are available in District 2 and the alleged baggage that comes with those candidates and noticed that there was no one else running in the primary, I had to throw my hat in the ring. Because even when we have people who are good in office, they always should have a challenger because it keeps the people who are representing us from forgetting who they are supposed to represent and keep them accountable to community. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of where I am, what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Right. In your opinion, what is the most pressing issue that the State House needs to address at this time in this next session? And what should be done to address that?
Oh man, as a whole state, so obviously in Hawaii we're islands. So though there are many things that connect our needs and the things that are people are struggling with across āina, there's also very specific things going on in individual districts and individual islands. From community, I'm constantly hearing about housing and the shocking increase of prices over the last couple of years and how difficult it is to make ends meet and keep families together, or even start new families. We even like on Kona side, we have an entire high school that's out of commission right now from the Kona low storms, and those kids are back in remote learning situations, which is just untenable. And you know, what is government for if not to pool our collective resources fairly based on income and wealth and then redistribute them to people that need it the most? Because I'm truly believe that if we are all lucky, if we're all really lucky, then at some point we will need help and have that help. And these are all systemic problems, but really the system is made by people, so we have a choice to change things, and we have a choice to make sure that our people are housed and that our kids are educated and fed. We have a choice to move towards a energy sovereignty future that doesn't cause further sickness and harm. And I know those are all kind of like very big ideas, but it really all comes back to those situations for every single smaller problem that I hear community concerned about along the way. So those are
Thank you.
our biggest challenges, I think.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get to some particulars, Tina, so don't worry about us not hitting on some points.
Excellent.
But you mentioned you mentioned community just now. You mentioned door knocking and having thousands of conversations. Can you explain or highlight your community involvement in general? And can you explain a successful community project that you were a part of?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So I first became in like deep connection with community. I opened and ran a coffee shop for a year and a half down in downtown Hilo. And the principle of that shop was to build a third space. So a space that was accessible, open, comfortable, and welcoming to all community members, no matter if they could afford to be there or not, right? And from there, just seeing people connect was really special to me and is the guiding principle of all the things that I do. So on the another like kind of smaller scale project that I have worked on successfully that I'm feeling really proud of is up in Waikauka, like kind of way up Ainoʻola where my neighborhood is. We had a developer buy up a huge chunk of land and treat it irresponsibly. They were doing illegal grading, they were filling in streams, and I was able to go door to door, and if people weren't home, I was putting little letters in their mailboxes explaining what was going on and asking for collective action to make it stop. And we were able to get the county to do a stop work order and a cease and desist and force them to go back to the drawing board and make sure that if they are going to finish developing that plot of land, that they do it respectfully and with care. We also on my street, we've successfully, the neighborhood petitioned to have more speed tables put in because people are driving, unfortunately, like they needed to be somewhere yesterday, and it causes continuously dangerous situations for our neighborhood's kids and family members who are just trying to live our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, sorry, more things. My spider web brain, right? I have been a active member of the Democratic Party here in Hawaii for several years. I am the chair of District 2, which is kind of like I think of it as kind of the counterpart of the state house representative within the Democratic Party. I have drastically increased our participation from young, diverse, new voices. I authored 17 resolutions ranging from ending military leases, kicking out data centers permanently, increasing transparency and accountability of our government, all of it through our county party, and passed them through our county convention. And actually, tomorrow on the 30th, we're going to the state convention to continue to champion those ideas and ideals. So yeah, every time there's a meeting, I'm trying to show up, want to learn, I want to advocate and make the world the way that it ought to be, best I can.
How did you go about increasing participation? I'm curious as to what you did to get people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to get people involved is through open, honest communication and education. So one thing that I think that a lot of, especially the new people who have agreed to join the party and join our organizing efforts, did not realize is that when a representative or a senator can no longer serve for any reason, we don't have special elections here. We have a inter-party appointment process. And what ends up happening is somebody retires or passes or is no longer able to serve, and then a group of at most 16 people choose the 3 names that get sent to our governor for appointment to take over that space. And then that person has essentially the bully pulpit of incumbency and tends to just stay. So when you look across the state and even Hawai'i Island, it's kind of a shocking percentage of our representatives and senators who started as appointments and just never left. So having those kinds of conversations with younger people who are kind of just like, what the heck is going on? Like, why is this system this way? And trying to break it down of the actual mechanisms for which progress doesn't happen is motivating, because if you don't like the choices that are being made and you realize the table's only set with 16 chairs, and then maybe you want to sit down, maybe you want to come. And yeah, so we've had some real success within the party, and then have continued to expand. And it's a push and pull. We need people from the outside doing the work, and we need people from the inside doing the work, so that we can all be moving in the directions that make sense. But definitely demystifying and education is my number one for getting people to activate and participate.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Great. Severe storms and fires continue to pose a threat against public safety. How is the current system working for our island, and what do you think needs to change?
Yeah, man, big one. Okay, so the system that works for our island is literally our neighbors. Like, we protect, we see it time and time again. I apologize, I might get a little bit emotional about this one. We can't expect the government to show up within 72 hours of these massive disasters, and we rely on one another to show up and lift each other up. So knowing that is just expected is devastating to me. Like, for example, the tsunami threat and the actual tsunami that showed up last year, the whole neighborhood of Keaukaha just knows where bolt cutters are like hidden along the way and along the fences because they know that it's up to them to get out and to protect one another. And it's unacceptable to me. We have the resources here. We have the money. We have the power to make that not be so. And we need the political will and the courage to do something with it. Like, I'm a huge proponent of taxing the ultra wealthy. Like, I'm talking like the 5 yacht, like the crying because they can't get their 6th yacht kind of wealthy. I'm talking about the billionaires that are buying up huge tracts of our land here. Like, if they think that they can be here and not participate, they're wrong. And this idea that we continuously are in austerity measures and that we don't have enough, that we are in scarcity, is nonsense to me. So yeah, we have the ability. The scaffolding is there, and we need to fund it, and we need to work in every capacity that we can. For example, I also helped put together the Hawaii County Committee on Persons with Disabilities, which was very important to me. I looked at the website and realized that there was no people on that committee, and I myself am autistic, so I was like, that that's my lane. We're gonna take care of that. And one of the big projects that we are pushing to work on is a clear evacuation and support plan for our neighbors who are kupuna and need help, who are disabled and need help, of all abilities and levels. So to me, it's really just about leveraging the systems that exist and pushing for courage and political will to implement the resources and money that is here, that is already here to help one another on a level bigger than street by street.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for that, Tina.
Mhm.
I'm going to switch gears to another topic of waste management. We have a number of broad topics we're going to cover, so just be prepared for that back and forth. But currently on Hawai'i Island, our landfills are projected to fill by 2050 unless
Mhm.
measures are taken to divert or otherwise minimize the production of physical waste. What do you see as possible solutions to addressing that issue and future-proofing the islands from this outcome?
Absolutely. Thank you. I also think about this a lot in my spiderweb brain. So I'm just going to tell like a tiny story, an example of how I literally in my own life know that it doesn't have to be this way either. Myself and a couple of other jolly people had produced the Volcano Renaissance Fair last year, which was a fundraiser for Recycle Hawaii that deals with these exact issues that you're asking about. And we put on a weekend long event that held, I think around 3,000 guests came through. And we had systems in place throughout the entire event to deal with waste management. So the Recycle Hawaii crew brought a bunch of really awesome OPO up from Ka'u, and we didn't have trash cans. We had rubbish stations. We had discard stations. And none of the vendors or food vendors were permitted to use any packaging that wasn't compostable. And I mean compostable like in your own garden, not industrial compostable kind. So people would bring their discarded materials to the OPO who would sort them and weigh them and make sure that they made it into the right space. And at the end of the weekend, we calculated that we took in about 500 pounds of rubbish, which is already immensely low due to the lack of packaging from vendors and all of our food vendors. Um, and around 485 pounds of that was high five, recycled, or composted directly into the ground on the property that we held the event. So less than one, like, regular person's pickup truck of trash went to the landfill from that event. And it was such a massive victory and such a beautiful thing to experience because it again shows that all we need is the will and the creativity to do it. And honestly, the feedback that we got from guests was that that was one of their favorite parts. Like one of their favorite things is that they were never handed a bunch of plastic that they needed to open and throw away. I also was a big advocate in helping pass Bill 83 at the county level. So we did a lot more work to ban single-use plastics in our like to-go food containers and stuff like that. And I look forward to the day that we ban all plastic bottles. Like that's crazy, like absolutely insane. There's so many other options um, for beverages. Yeah, so and also it's definitely worth it to look to other states and to other countries and also to look to the past of what Hawai'i has always done. The answers to all of these existential problems tend to be answered by the people who are closest to the land and closest to the problem. So when we listen to the rightful stewards of this land, and then we follow and support, as I believe is the actual purpose of government, then I think we'll be right on track again to solve our waste management problems.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, as Gabe said, we're going to be shifting around back and forth and all around to try to cover because it's just our lives are so broad, our existence. So here's military testing and astronomical research as exemplified by the Pohakoloa training area and the 30-meter telescope project, respectively, continue to be a source of concern among residents and Native Hawaiians. What is your stance on these and similarly related scientific and military endeavors of Hawai'i Island? And specifically, what new legislation would you support to counteract the harmful environmental and cultural effects of these projects?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Let me just say right off the bat, no TMT, no militarization, absolutely demilitarized Hawaii yesterday. And functionally by that, I mean that the United States military is one of the most egregious perpetrators of environmental and human harm across this entire planet. And again, we are sitting in an illegally occupied sovereign nation right here, right now. The United States has never had the right to be here and to do the things that we do. And I think that it's, kind of like a scary thing to say, but to me personally, it really is the baseline. The United States military needs to clean up its frickin' messes. It needs to pay the reparations. It needs to right the wrongs that have been done. And it needs to get out of here. It has no business running war games. It has no business inviting other countries to come and play war games in our waters. It is unacceptable. And I will do everything that I can inside and outside and anywhere that I am to fight for freedom from the US imperialist machine. And I also want to make it super clear that my stance on this is not anti-veteran and it is not anti-service member. I think that the best thing that we can do for people who are willing or have to serve in order to feed their families and gain access to education and hopeful stability in the future parts of their lives is to stop teaching them to murder and stop sending them across the world to murder. We don't even take care of our veterans. The ones that come back, like so many of them are houseless and broken. It's just a sham. It's just a despicable sham and it is unnecessary. And I deeply believe with my whole heart that the US military presence here makes us less safe. So.
Well, you're clearly sitting on the fence on that issue. So no, thank you for that articulate response. I appreciate that. Again, shifting topics, you've talked about sovereignty and separation from the U.S. Well, one concern is food sovereignty across the islands. Over 80% of our food is imported.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, which local agricultural or food security projects are you proud of in your district that are working? And how can those models scale to meet local needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year in the state legislature, we actually helped to pass strengthening and support for cooperative models. And that is super exciting to me because, again, it's just looking back into what humans have always done. These islands supported the population that we have now and more without importing 80% of our foods. So it's just about resource management and care from Mauka to Makai to make sure that we have everything that we need. Especially on Big Island, we are so blessed to have so much beautiful land that is ready, willing, and able to grow food for our people. And the government needs to invest in those systems. Most of the farmers that I know have to have at least one other job. Like I met a farmer the other day who has literally hundreds of cacao trees that she takes care of and has to have another job. It's insane to me that we would move through space and time as if clean food, clean water, clean soil, clean air is not the least that we can do, both for our generations and the generations coming. One project that I'm working on right now is with a smaller hui of farmers, and I'm gathering all of their needs. You know, they're sending me, we're like consolidating down a list of what they would like to see and the kind of support that they would like to see from the government. And I'm going through and making reports from every single representative, senator, representative, county council member across the island for what they have done over the last couple of years to further those goals of the farmers, and also what they haven't done or what they have done to make, whether on purpose or not, to make their lives harder. Because again, I think that the system, this like lofty thing that happens that is government, is behind, it's basically behind a paywall, right? So the more that people have easily accessible information, and the more that people have easily accessible communication lines through to the halls of power, the more that they are going to be able to bust moves and take care of themselves, and therefore take care of us.
Yeah.
So I love the farm to table programs we have going on. I'm hoping that we can continue to push to, again, feed all of our kids at least 2 meals at school, and also use all of those mechanisms to increase the health of our farming system. Another thing that I'm super focused on always is protecting the integrity of agricultural land. So we end up with kind of a lot of situations here on Hawai'i Island where people who have a ton of money and not much dreams of farming, buying up a bunch of farmland, a bunch of ag land, and maybe putting a couple cows on it to say like, look, I'm a farmer, but not actually leveraging that space properly. So I think we need more accountability, and I'll work to make sure that happens, no matter where I am.
I have a quick follow-up to what you described. I think you're describing a government subsidy for these farms to scale their production. And you mentioned earlier in this interview the money being here, I think in the forms of either wealthy or ultra wealthy individuals, and I'm assuming you're alluding to their tax contributions as the money being here.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we haven't seen those available resources be allocated to a food security project. So I guess my question is, but when you say the money being here, how do you plan on sourcing this funding to scale those models? And I'll go ahead, and we have a question later, but I want to bring it up now. Sorry, this is such a prolonged question.
No,
But
please.
many bills have been presented to the State House and Senate pertaining to subsidies on local food hubs. But it seems that many of them are killed before reaching public testimony or getting passed ultimately.
Yep.
So what do you think the holdup is, and what should be done to hold the committee accountable? I know I got so many questions, so let's just start with.
That's okay. It's definitely all connected. So
It is, yeah.
So there's an organization called Hawaii Tax Fairness that I work with, and we advocate for tax fairness. And that is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. People's brains low-key kind of turn off when we start getting into the nitty-gritty of taxes. So I'm a little bit hesitant to use 3 minutes to go really deep into that.
Sure.
But please, anybody who's interested, hightaxfairness.com. And there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're trying to put together. There's conveyance taxes on like super like big mansion sales. There's vacancy taxes. There's also like plenty of examples across the continent, across the world, and how money can be raised to access wealth, because a lot of the ultra wealthy do not pay very much in income taxes because they don't pay themselves a income. They just take loans and leverage their assets. So
Right.
we need to start getting really creative and how we access that wealth. Because obviously, if you look at any graph, the wealth disparity that's happened just in my short lifetime of 35 years is atrocious and unacceptable. The problem, to scoot back into why we haven't been seeing a lot of this, is that committee chairs have way too much power. So the way that the state House work and the Senate works is that you have the whole body, and then the body is broken up into committees or like little clubs that deal with individual specific categories of need. So like health and houselessness, or public safety and military, or finance, and these kinds of things. And right now we have a system set up where there's one person in charge, the chair, and they run the meeting and all that. But that one person also gets to decide if a bill gets heard. And so that one person gets to decide if, the needs and wants of constituents of a district that they do not represent gets brought to the committee. And often what happens in these backroom political games, frankly, is that there's a lot of like threats and weird jockeying where it's just like, you stay in line or I'm going to kill your bills, and you follow what leadership says, and then maybe next year you'll get a committee chair appointment. And it's frankly disgusting that is the system that we have. So this round, this election, I'm really excited because there are a lot of new, younger, ready to go candidates who are running. Last I counted, I think there's 25 to 27 of us between the State House of Representatives and the Senate. And if we were even to get 11 of us elected this time, that would be a huge shift in what we're able to do in the government. We would be able to force votes to the floor, essentially. We would be able to force people to go on the record and say, yes, I believe in food and like farm to table food programs, or no, I don't believe in that, because there's all these things that happen where it's like, well, we'll just kill it so you don't have to take that uncomfortable vote, or we're going to take it all the way to the very end and then we're going to gut all the language of the bill and stuff a bunch of other stuff in there so that it either dies or doesn't do its original purpose. So I hope that wasn't too like ridiculously convoluted on the shenanigans that happen, but the corruption is real and we can stop it. We just need numbers. So there's a lot, in all of our lives, and I'm sure I fall victim to this too, where I'm like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it's not about me. It's about we. It's about across the state having young leaders who are ready to step up and lockstep together to fight these corrupt structures and stop them dead in their tracks.
Yeah. No worries on address. I asked a convoluted question, so of course the answer is convoluted. So no worries there.
Did I get it? Did I get it all? I think it's
I think you touched on everything I've asked. There may be a follow-up email or text exchange after this, just for my own personal curiosity. But
Right, yeah.
I think it's a multifaceted problem. So you described a number of the principles that go into it. So I'll pass it over to Antu for more of our pre-written questions.
And we have lots potentially to go. Yeah, so this is kind of going back to the community involvement, in particular, especially for the legislators, because the Capitol in session is on Oahu. And so it seems like it's really easy for our House and Senate representatives to just kind of disappear after getting elected and not really spend a lot of time other than like ribbon cutting or something to actually be out in the community. So I'm interested in what would you do to promote civic engagement and more effectively involve our residents in solution decision-making processes and bringing them along and getting their mana'o and stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you, Antu. That's a great question. So right off the bat, my personal promise is that I will hold monthly town hall meetings physically in District 2. So there I will physically be, it'll usually be a Saturday or Sunday, obviously, especially during the legislative session, but I will be here in community every month. I will have weekly office hours, and while in Honolulu, those will be accessible via Zoom. And then during the off season of not active legislative session, those will also be both in Zoom and in person. I also personally believe that representatives, though it is much more complicated than this, but I think that it is best for the people when representatives are ready, willing, and able to spend a considerable amount of time communicating with their constituents and not just the people in the halls of power. So I already have a pretty robust presence on social media where I do a lot of education and a lot of civic content and engage in a lot of conversation with people. On my website, holtforhawaii.com, you can go to the page on the record. And on that page, it has every single piece of testimony and thoughts and things that I'm working on and advocating in the community, searchable by category and by keyword. So anybody who's interested can go directly and read any of the things that I have had to say so far, and you can find my direct contact information there. I would also love to have, because you get to hire staff for your office if you're a representative, and I want one of those staff members to be in Hilo. I want to have a community representative in Hilo whose job is to be physically present and available and easily accessible while I'm working in Honolulu. Because I tell you, man, I've been over there so many times doing advocacy work and participating in those halls, and Honolulu feels like an entire different world. It's so kind of mind-boggling to be somewhere so different in such a short period of time. And I think that it's just normal human psychology to forget where you were. And honestly, even if you're doing a good job, you should be present where you are. You should be focused on what is directly in front of you. So having a plan and an understanding that that is how human psychology works, to make sure that there is regular touch points to community, is super important. And, you know, our current representative held one town hall in the last 2 years, and that was with like 6 other legislators, most of which aren't even Hawai'i Island legislators. So that is exactly what I will not be doing. And actually, even regardless of how the election goes, this is just normal advocacy work that we do anyway, right? So within the Democratic Party, these are things that I've already been doing for years. We hold regular meetings, we put forward our thoughts and ideas, and we communicate with our legislators, we communicate with leadership on what we would like to see. So it's really just going to be a continuation of the work that we've already been doing to stay grounded.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Tina, you've mentioned a few times now the importance of community involvement and listening to the community and the actual wants of the people. However, as we've kind of already touched upon, a number of bills that seem like no-brainers to pass oftentimes end up being held up or otherwise not passed. And you yourself have cited governmental corruption being a potential source of that issue. So this is a question on government ethics. What should be done to hold these subcommittees, or clubs as you describe them, accountable with regards to corporate lobbying and private party interests?
Yeah, totally. So I was also one of the lead advocates on SB 2471 this year, the bill to quote unquote end Citizens United in Hawaii. So primarily, like a big deal is to get big money and dark, untraceable money out of our politics immediately. Being an advocate and cruising around the halls and doing lobbying work myself, you see like lobbyists like line up outside of representatives' doors trying to get meetings, and it's just like, the representatives are supposed to be that for the people, you know, like these like big companies have these big pocketbooks that they can pay people to go and work for them like that. But that's what we're using our tax dollars to pay our representatives for. Like they're supposed to be essentially lobbyists for the people. So again, we got to get the big money out of politics. Another really big issue for me, and I believe there's an active lawsuit right now against the House of Representatives for violating the state constitution and how they are conducting themselves, because essentially the House and the Senate write their own rules for themselves. They say like, oh, we're so ethical, we totally get to write our own rules and we're going to abide by them. And this lawsuit, my understanding is that the lawsuit is that they held all of their meetings about what their rules and what their code of conduct was going to be behind closed doors without anybody being able to see what was happening. And that's a problem. And at this particular point, I don't see how it's possible for our state House of Representatives or our Senate to be trusted with their own accountability, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure what it would look like to shift that system. Um, maybe slightly related. Like, I think that our attorney general should probably be an elected position rather than a appointed position that's connected directly to the governors at will. Like, we need distribution of power. We need, and there constantly seems to be this like aim to consolidate and kind of like gremlin it up in a very concerning way. So the first step is to get a bunch of people elected who want something different, and to let these incumbents who are far too comfortable in the seats that they sit in know that we're watching and we don't like it. So we're coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's one that's near and dear to my heart because I live next door to an elementary school that opened in 1893, 2 months after the overthrow. And I've learned that DOE in 2017 contracted for a functional adequacy study and showed that the bottom ranked 21 of 259 schools in the state, 10 are on Hawai'i Island. So almost half of the bottom 21 are in Hawai'i Island. The state has not been upgrading and replacing these schools methodically since then. DOE and the legislature is accountable. What would you do to get the safe and comfortable places to learn that Haumana and staff need and deserve? And Haumana Elementary School is one of those schools.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for that question. Again, it kind of continuously comes back to political will and the corruption of the system for me. And again, that we do have the levers to use money. I also have always found it a bit odd that we have one full state system here rather than school districts and school boards, which I know have their own strange things that happen sometimes. But the idea that we can legislate something statewide when there are so many different needs of each individual community by doing one big DOE rather than a more localized system is concerning to me. We also have seen just continuously for decades the taking away of money from our education system, the systematic destruction of public education. And if I may put on possibly a tinfoil hat about it, it's much easier to control our population and the destinies of our population when people are uneducated. And that's why I think we're starting to see, and powerhouses have been working on this, right? Like, we have a lot of, Hawaiian immersion preschools and charter programs that are coming up in a very interesting way to once again fill those gaps, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. So obviously we need to invest in the physical infrastructure of our schools because our kids need places to go and learn. I also would really love to see kids not on computers all day. Like, we really, it weirds me out. I was trying to help my nephew with math homework, and he brought me a laptop and no textbook. And like, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm an old fart at this point about it, but I'm just kind of like, how are you going to do this without paper and pen? Like, how are you going to learn when there's LEDs in your eyes all the time? How are you going to socialize when it's just this rather than like discussion and communication with one another? And how are you going to learn when our teachers can't even afford to live here? Like, and half of their paycheck is going to buying supplies for their own classroom because we're letting our schools fall apart and refusing to update the infrastructure. Like, how are our kids supposed to grow up to be the people that we need them to be when they're in literally toxic environments, physically toxic environments? Yeah, and it can be done. And again, it just takes the numbers of us to get into office and to have the bravery and the political will to say enough already. that like our only responsibility as adults is to the children and to their futures. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Sorry, I feel like I'm maybe kind of like a broken record because it all always comes back to kind of similar things for me.
I mean, you touched on it a little bit with teachers, and it seems like we're having a difficult time attracting qualified teachers, and a lot of it is because of the cost of living. It's the same thing with medical staff. Do you have any ideas on what you can do or what can be done to improve that situation to attract better qualified teachers and health personnel?
Yeah, well, there's the fight that's happening against I can't remember the name of the organization that's coming after the programs to train medical personnel within the Native Hawaiian community to serve the Native Hawaiian community, and we got to put a stop to that kind of stuff. Like that's nuts. We need, because again, the people who are closest to the place and to the problems are the ones that know the best how to take care. We need the government to get out of the way for some things, like the midwifery situation, where we're trying to legislate out the ability for people to choose how they give birth is insane to me. And you're exactly right. Housing is the root of issue in being able to retain young people here. Like our generation that's coming up and leaving high school and leaving college right now has nowhere to live. So how do they stay and invest back into their communities? And again, we can see from around the world and around the United States, different methods to gather that resource and that wealth to create housing in a way that is plentiful and sustainable and healthy. So, yeah.
Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, Jeff, you kind of touched on it in your question, but by extension of making the necessary purchases more affordable, how would you address, like, for example, the Hawaii state minimum wage is $16 an hour. I assume, just based on what you're saying, that you would agree that that's a bit low for the cost of living out here. Stop me if that assumption is wrong, but how would you address fair wages in Hawaii?
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for that question. So, organized labor is super important. Not only lifting up unions as a structure, but lifting up union members in a way that they keep control of their own unions so that it is a function of the working class rather than secretly not being, right? So we need to strengthen our regulations to protect against union busting and union busting tactics. We need to make sure that people have the right to strike and that the government should be taking the side of the worker every time. It should always be taking the side of the people rather than the giant corporations, especially the ones that don't start here. And like they're just extracting money off of our islands anyway. And yes, absolutely. $16 an hour is literally a starvation wage. Like I don't think people even understand like what is 16 times 40? Like I worked in a coffee shop not too long ago and it was like I had to quit.
64.
That is $640.
16 times 40 is 640. Yeah, 640.
Yeah, $640 a week. And then that's before taxes. And $2,500 a month. Who can do that? That's nuts. It's insulting. And people who say they're like, wow, look at us. We have 16 and it's going to be 18. That's the one that I hear soon is like, it's going to increase to 18. Look at us go. And it's just like, that's silly, guys. That's an extra $80 a week. Right? That's maybe enough for groceries. I personally would love to see the CEO's pay tied to the lowest worker in their company. You know, like when the United States had a middle class, the highest paid person in the company made maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 times what the lowest paid worker in their company made. And now we're looking at 3,000, 30,000 times the money that the CEOs up at the top make versus their workers. And that's ridiculous. If we can legislate having a minimum wage, then there should be consequences. And when companies treat their employees terribly, and when landlords treat their tenants terribly, we can take action. Like I saw a video the other day that was Mayor Mamdani over in New York talking about how they're going after slumlords for real. And they're putting on the table that if people aren't taking care of their properties and taking care of the people who look to them for housing and work, that maybe the tenants and the workers are going to be the ones ending up owning those spaces and owning those companies. So
I want to just quickly interject because I know we're limited for time, but did you say that you were a business owner of a small coffee shop?
Yes, I was. I had
Okay.
a coffee shop, and I made the exact same money as everybody that worked there. I also, it was my first opportunity to run a business where I had a couple of employees. Usually in my small business ventures tend to be like just me and my partner.
Mhm.
And I went and spent kind of a considerable amount of time reading through psychology literature about what makes bosses terrible. Because I
Okay.
was like, I don't want that to be me, right? And again, it's just like kind of natural human psychology that when you don't do something, you forget what it is to do it. So when I
I
own,
just
sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I know we're limited for time, so I want to quickly get this question in while we have time.
Mhm.
The burden of fair wages, for example, a fair wage, I agree with you, should be raised for someone who works for a large corporation. Costco should be paying their employees more, Walmart should be paying employees more. But the burden of reaching a minimum wage, would that fall on the small business owner? And if so, how do you see the balance between encouraging small businesses, encouraging local business without them completely divulging all of their gains to just fund their employees because the state minimum wage has been raised?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is a balance between because always the giant corporations are going to be able to outcompete the little guys. Like that's how we ended up with Amazon, right? But we as government personnel, as regulators, have the ability to regulate that. And we have the ability to say, oh, you think you're going to open a big Amazon warehouse here? Well, it's going to cost you this much yearly, which we will then put into a fund to support small business owners. And we can, as a government, we can offer like interest-free loans to small businesses. We can hold events where we are like pointing energy towards them. And again, this actually also goes back to the Volcano Renaissance Fair that I helped produce of we can create commerce over capitalism because capitalism requires clawing wages away from people. But when we work on a economy of care and an economy of community, then we can support one another with the help of the government, making sure that there is access and space and available infrastructure for our small businesses.
Thank you for entertaining that question. I know it went long, so thank you.
No, it's okay.
Okay. We are out of time. Mahalo, Tina, for participating tonight. Tina is the candidate or is a candidate for House District 2. Also would like to thank both our interviewers tonight, Gabe and Antu. And I would like to encourage everybody that's listening tonight to discuss these important issues with your friends and family and get out there and vote and ask them to get out there and vote. That's what it's all about, is voting. HULI PAC was born from a shared drive to rework our system by seeking indigenously, progressive-minded, āina-based, equity-focused leadership for our Hawai'i Island community. Now more than ever, we need leaders who are willing to circle back to our roots and instill real change to regenerate and transform our Hawai'i Island community. For more information, please check out our website, hulihigh.com. That's HULIHI.com. Thanks very much for joining us this evening, and have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me.
At HULI PAC, we envision a future in which our Hawai'i Island community is empowered to elect pono leaders, nurture our relationship with āina, and inspire environmental, social, and economic well-being.
Our mission is to endorse and support candidates and office holders of integrity who serve āina and the people of Hawai'i Island. We do this by interviewing, researching, and ultimately vetting candidates and incumbents who are running for local office.
All of our interviews are streamed live so that you have the power to make decisions off of substance rather than a familiar face or a name. We must move forward and encourage voting based on righteous qualifications and a backbone to stand up for what is Pono.